Hey guys, this is Jackson, just jumping in with something I forgot to mention at the beginning of this podcast episode. Two things. First of all, we are going to start doing iTunes review shout-outs moving forward, so if there's anything you want us to say on the air or anything you want to get to us, just leave it in the form of an iTunes review. Or just be normal and leave a regular iTunes review, as long as it's positive. But we're going to be reading iTunes reviews every week on the show for the foreseeable future, just as a shameless attempt to market ourselves. Also, we want to start hearing more from listeners regarding the actual movies we're covering. So starting next week, we'll be covering Sonic the Hedgehog. If there's anything you want to say, any fun anecdotes you want us to read on the air, something you think is worth saying about Sonic the Hedgehog, you can tweet it at us at NoNerdsPod, or email it to us at nonerdspod@gmail.com, and we might read it on the air. Thank you, guys. Scooby-Dooby-Doo, where are you? Pretending you got a podcast, and if you count on me, Scooby-Dee, and now you'll shake and shiver.
You know you got a mystery, so it's in your ass. Don't come back.
If you go through, you're gonna have a little Scooby snack. That's a fact. It's a podcast.
More like Scooby-Dooby don't.
My name is Jackson McMurray.
My name is Adeline McMurray.
I've taken an exasperated tone in this episode.
Because we're
talking about Scoob. This is Under the Lab. Okay. How long do you think we can talk about Scoob?
There's a lot to talk about. Just none of it's good.
I think... Okay. So, today...
Scooby-Dooby-Dee. I can't see.
We're talking about the worst movie of all time, Scoob, which dropped today, and I gave it $20 whole.
Whoa, that's a lot of dollars.
In order to watch it. Because, okay, look. So, before we really dive into it, and how awful and horrible it is, because don't get me wrong, it's the worst.
It's not good.
But I want to talk about the, weird production history of this movie. Because, so the first thing they announced was they were like, hey, we're going to do a big budget, theatrical animated Scooby-Doo movie. 3D animated.
And we were all like, hell yeah, that sounds great.
That sounds cool. And then later, they were like, here's what's up. It's written by a guy named Randall Green. He's not, famous or anything. He was...
From school.
He was one of the writers on Billions on Showtime. And he wrote one of those Noah Centineo Netflix movies. Doesn't matter.
Cool.
But they're like, here's the guy who's going to write it. We're going to have this guy direct it. The guy still directed it. But,
yeah.
But they were like, it's going to be called SCOOB, like an acronym, like Scoob. And the log line
and bring me a drink. Do you remember that
Why
song?
Did you say that?
Because it's an acronym. Well, because the song's called SOB.
Oh, okay.
Do you remember that one week when that was on every single?
No, that was a while. That was a good song.
It was a good song.
Anyway, we're not talking about Nathaniel Rateliff and the Night Sweats. We're talking about
Can we instead?
Scoob. And their log line when they announced it was it's called an acronym because the Mystery Incorporated is going to get amalgamated into a bigger company, and they're going to have to go corporate, and so that's their new company name is SCOOB, and it's an acronym for something. They didn't announce what it's going to be an acronym for, but that was the gag of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then at some point
they didn't
do that. And my big take here is that I'm not trying to say that that version of the movie was going to be some masterpiece that we never got to see. I'm sure it would have been fine. Maybe it would have been good. I'm interested in the idea of them having to go corporate and have to wrestle with the idea of can we do more good in this structure because we have a broader reach even though we're being overseen by such and such and told to do certain things. That's a fun, broad idea for a Scooby-Doo thing, especially if you're going to go all in on it. It would be like Scooby-Doo Civil War, right?
Yeah.
Or Ford v Ferrari.
Or a movie with a coherent plot.
Right. And they fired that guy and they brought on a new guy to write it, and they wrote a different movie. And it is, to me, the least interesting, most cynical script
It's the most corporate thing
ever. Because it's a fucking superhero movie.
Yeah.
It is absolutely non-related to anything that Scooby-Doo is
or has ever
at
been.
all, or has ever been. And they said, and part of the pitch originally was that they were going to do a Hanna-Barbera universe.
Yeah.
They were going to start with Scooby-Doo, and they were going to move on and do, they didn't say anything specific, but presumably the Flintstones and the Jetsons, and there'd be a crossover or something.
Mm-hmm. Which, how the fuck would that work? I don't know.
Johnny Quest,
but...
Harvey Birdman, I don't know.
God, I would love a Harvey Birdman movie.
Droopy Dog.
See, that's what always sucks, is that all of these, like, production companies, they have, like, these big ideas of, like, extended universes jumping off of a movie.
Right.
But then they do that first movie, and it just fucking sucks. And it's like,
right.
I wish that this was good, because I want to see what you wanted to do, but this was so bad that I don't want to know what you wanted to do.
Right. And we talked about the Dark Universe for a while on this podcast. We didn't do an episode on Invisible Man, did we?
No, we did not.
No. We talked about it for a while for whatever reason. Anyway, but that's another one of those things. It's like this big weird idea that totally like just
fell apart
died
because
on
you
impact.
made a bad movie.
See, it just makes us more grateful for the cinematic universes we have.
We do have.
The Marvel one, the DC one kinda.
No, not the DC one. Get that shit out of here.
The Godzilla one. Which
is that really an extended universe if it's just Godzilla movies?
No, well, yes, because you got Godzilla.
Yeah.
And then you got Kong.
Okay.
And then you got Godzilla 2.
Okay.
And then you got Batman vs Superman, but with Godzilla and Kong.
When was that?
It's coming out later this year.
Oh,
Not later this year though. Later forever because of the virus.
Yeah, no, you got it. Yeah.
And what else? The Dark Universe.
Sure.
The Lego Universe.
The Lego Universe. Listen, no one's gonna say it. The Lego Batman movie, very good.
The M. Night Shyamalan Unbreakable-verse.
Sure.
I think that's over. I think it was just 3 movies, but that's fine.
Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, sure.
It's got the Hobbit. There's it's
because okay, look, I gotta focus on the stuff we still have.
Okay.
We don't have that anymore. It's over.
Okay.
They're going to do an Amazon TV show, but I don't think it's related. I think it's just a different adaptation.
Yeah.
Have you heard about that lately, by the way?
All I've heard is my friend's brother complaining that there's going to be black elves in it.
Okay. Because they kept saying it's going to be like the biggest budget for a television show ever.
That would be dope.
It's like they're saying the reported budget is $1 billion.
I hope that means practical effects and not just a huge CGI budget. I hope that's what that means.
Right. But yeah, no, they're talking about, because like, but it's been so long. Let me take a quick look-see.
A little looky-loo.
I haven't heard anything about that for a while, but
yeah.
I guess if it is going to be that huge, it would probably take a while to make.
Yeah, and it's definitely getting delayed now.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know. Well, I don't know if they've already shot.
Yeah, on what stage of filming they're at.
IndieWire, everything you need to know about Amazon's Lord of the Rings.
They got it. We're doing it.
They've kept the news about Lord of the Rings as quiet as they possibly can, but IndieWire has compiled the 9 must-know details. It's based on epic source material. I don't know what that means.
I don't know what that is.
There's a lot of hype to live up to. Cool.
Yes.
That's not information. It's actually a prequel series. Okay.
That's fun.
So it is connected to the Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings, and it's just another story that takes place before.
In that span of time.
And you know what? I'm all for that, because
that sounds fun.
People are weird about Lord of the Rings in the sense that they're always like purists about the actual Tolkien novel.
Yeah.
But I don't think we need to be. I think we can be like, this can belong to anybody. This is a whole
do
thing.
whatever you want with Tolkien.
We can tell our own stories. Anyway, let's see what other 9 things. It cost a pretty penny. Hollywood Reporter reported that the whole series would end up costing more than $1 billion.
Wow.
Lord of the Rings.
Is Gandalf in it?
I don't know.
I want Gandalf to be
Prepare
in it.
for another epic journey.
Yes, I would assume so.
None of these are facts.
I sure do hope so.
2 out of the 5 so far have been facts.
What's going on behind the scenes?
What's going on behind the scenes?
It's not a statement.
What about the cast? So I guess it's still in pre-production.
Okay, that would make sense. Because it's a projected budget, too. It's not like this is how much they've spent. This is how much we would like to spend. Someone give us money.
It's going to be shot in New Zealand, and production is coming.
Okay.
They announced it in November of 2017.
Ooh.
They said that they were going to start filming in February, which I'm sure they did.
And I'm sure they stopped.
But not no more. Okay. So that's coming along. Anyway, what were we talking about? Cinematic
Extended
universes. The Fast and the Furious cinematic universe.
But that's not a universe. That's just
Adeline,
a series.
Hobbs and Shaw.
But that's...
Fast and Furious presents Hobbs and Shaw.
But that is a sequel. That is not...
No, it's a spin-off.
Universe, I guess.
It's Hobbs and Shaw.
I guess. I
need you to put some more respect on Hobbs and Shaw.
Finding Nemo.
Shrek, because of Puss in Boots.
Yeah, you're right. It's not over. Tom Holland's gonna be Shrek.
What?
No, Tom Holland's just the new Shrek. I hope to God he plays one of Shrek's sons. That would be so good. I want all the stupid, ugly, horrifying triplets
to be
from
like
Shrek the Third.
Now?
I want them to all be like hot teens.
Okay, let's see. Shrek 5. Let's see how that's going.
DreamWorks Wiki, let's go. Who does Tom Holland play?
Cast TBA.
God damn it.
There's no information about it.
But it is a thing that Tom Holland's in it, so it's like a poster or something.
Why are you poking
Franklin is recording with us. He keeps punching Jackson. Because it's Scoob, and you have to have your dog.
Yeah.
You have to have your lifelong best friend that your friendship always grows, Jackson.
The script is completed. The story was written by Austin Powers writer Michael McCullens.
That sounds fun.
Based on his own idea with an intention to reinvent the series.
Oh, God.
I have heard people saying that it's going to be a reboot, which is insane. Obviously, it's not going to be a reboot.
Yeah, no, because that shit would never fly.
And every time, they always say that, because whenever you're, like, making a sequel to something that's, like, kind of worn out or has been around for a while, you've got to, like, think critically about, like, okay, what are we going to do to shake this up? How are we going to make it different? What do you have to do?
Yeah.
And invariably, that means somebody does an interview where they say, we wanted to reinvent this and, like, make it something different.
Yeah.
And people always take that to mean, that means it's a
reboot.
reboot. But that doesn't.
No.
And speaking of, let's talk about Scoob.
Okay.
Which is the worst possible reboot ever.
Which is an example of what I hope Shrek 5 isn't.
Yeah.
Because just to talk about Shrek, my good friend Shrek for one more second, is that, like, all of the movies in that series are pretty darn good, except for the third one. Like, the fourth one is, like, definitely out there, but, like, it's not bad. So I hope they do something like that again, where it's like, we're doing something, but, like, it's not bad.
Did you just re-segue back into Shrek?
Yes, I wanted to you moved on from Shrek, and I wanted to continue to talk about Shrek.
Okay, alright, fine.
And my hot take is that Shrek the Fourth is not that bad.
Okay. What do you think would happen if they made a DreamWorks cinematic universe? They brought in...
Okay, so it'd be Kung Fu Panda...
It would be Shrek 5,
Madagascar...
Shrek meets Chris Rock from Madagascar.
Yeah.
Lenny. No, what's his name?
Lenny Bruce.
What's the David Schwimmer giraffe's name? Marty?
Medication.
No, Marty's
Marty
Chris Rock.
is the
Marty's the zebra. Alex and Marty and...
Gloria. And...
Melvin?
Melvin?
The cast for that movie is so weird. Like, it speaks to a very specific point in time where it's like you could build your blockbuster cast for an animated movie around Ben Stiller, David Schwimmer, and Chris Rock.
Yeah.
That's just very funny
I
to
never
me.
saw any of those films except for the first one. I have a feeling they're all bad.
Yeah, no, it seems
I have
like...
a sneaking subscription.
It's kind of the Cars of the DreamWorks canon.
Yeah, that would make sense. So let's get them all up in here. I thought you were going to say what if Shrek and Scooby-Doo met.
Oh.
Because... I don't know.
They could solve Shrek's murder.
Yeah, there we go.
But speaking of mysteries and Scooby-Doo...
Hold on. I just got a very vivid scene in my head of the Scooby Incorporated trying to unmask Shrek, and Shrek's like, "What are you doing? That's my face.
I'm an ogre.
I'm an ogre. Why are you pulling on my weird little ears?"
And they're like, "Oh no."
They're like, "Oh, he's a real ogre. It's for
just
real
a guy.
this time. We've dealt with special effects and sound effects. This is the real deal, you guys."
So...
Which is something that they say in, I think, every single Scooby-Doo movie.
Right. So Scoob. Like I said, it's... That's the sound of our dog chewing on a toy. Like I said, it's a superhero movie.
Which, with the worst superhero.
My favorite thing about this movie is how they don't solve a mystery.
Yeah, uh-huh.
And also...
The movie's not about Mystery Incorporated.
Right, and also that it's still called Scoob, even though...
There's no reason for it to be called Scoob.
Right, there was a conceit behind the title Scoob originally, which has since been scrapped, and they still decided to call it Scoob.
See,
I don't know what that's all about.
Before we talk about how bad this film is, here's the movie that I would have made. I would have made a film because it's like the people who grew up with Scooby. Like, that's what I think, like, Pixar has done a really good job of doing with, like, their sequels. Of, like, people have grown up with these films, and now they're adults. So now we can capitalize on that and make a story kind of based on that idea. So I think we could also do that with Scooby-Doo, where it's like we do show them, like, growing up and solving mysteries together. But now we put them in, like, a modern setting where they're, like, adults and, like, they've kind of, like, moved on a little bit. And then we all come back to solve a good old mystery. And I think
that sounds a little bit too much like Ghostbusters Afterlife for me.
I didn't watch that film, so I don't know.
It hasn't come out yet. It's just the one where, it's the new one with Paul Rudd, where they're, like, in a cornfield and they're like, the Ghostbusters are coming back.
Excuse me?
Like, they're this incredible cultural revolution.
Yeah.
And it's like, finally, after all these years, the Ghostbusters have returned.
Well,
You're
I
like,
think
fuck
you could.
off.
I think you could smartly do that with Scooby-Doo. I think you could still include like the corporate idea with those themes. Like maybe everybody else went corporate and Shaggy and Scooby didn't want to do that and did something else. So it would be about like them coming back together to do an old-fashioned mystery.
Yeah.
Because they missed back when they could just do it the way they wanted to. And maybe like they're even competing with the Scoob organization.
Right.
Because they're both trying to like
That'll
solve
be
the same
fun.
mystery.
That's a good pitch.
Yeah, that is a good. It's way better than this pitch. This pitch over here.
This bitch of a pitch. But there are things I keep trying to say, but I keep getting sidetracked.
Yeah.
By you, because you keep talking about fucking Shrek.
I want to talk about Shrek so bad. I love Shrek so much.
Like, let me look at my notes again. So, okay, and the other thing
it's just
that
Shrek
feels
written over and over again.
Blatantly cynical about this movie.
Yeah.
Is the whole weird flashback origin story nonsense.
That takes so long.
That's like a solid 15 minutes of the movie.
Yeah.
It's not like a quick bit, it's like the opening few scenes of the movie.
Yeah.
That are completely irrelevant to the plot moving forward. Besides, I don't know, they set up that Shaggy gave Scooby the collar, which is fuck off.
Fucking knew.
And it just seems like an excuse to be like, make it cute. Put a baby in the trailer.
Put a baby dog, baby human.
They need babies in the trailer.
Lonely baby boy.
Yeah. And, like, first of all, I need Hollywood executives to understand that I don't give a shit why the Grinch is so grumpy. I don't give a shit how Scooby-Doo got his name. I don't give a shit how Captain Jack Sparrow got beads in his hair. That's something they do in Pirates of the Caribbean 5, is they give you a backstory.
That's stupid.
For the beads in his hair.
Yeah, well, it's just because this kind of origin story, because this is what they say, there's a Spider-Man movie every year. Am I going to have to see Uncle Ben die again? It's like, well, we've stopped doing that because you know the Spider-Man backstory, so we're not going to tell it to you. And I feel like that's a decision they should have made here. Like, maybe you do want to do a quick bit that's like them meeting each other, like, or like the whole gang meeting each other. Like, I think that's fun, and that does like provide some backstory and some character. But having fucking Shaggy walk on the beach by himself for 10 minutes
and listen to 3 punchline songs about loneliness in a row,
and then be like, oh my god, a dog, I'll call you Scrobbert. No, not that. Scoober. No, Scooby. And then as an audience, we're gonna be like, oh!
Yes, I love it!
That's what the movie's about. Scooby. Oh, I thought it was gonna be about Scrabdora. That's the one saving grace of this movie, is that Scrappy-Doo is not in it.
That's true. That was a good call.
The only good thing about this film is that Scrappy-Doo is dead.
They're saving that for the sequel.
Oh god, you know they are. It's just gonna be Scrappy-Doo as the villain again. Nobody likes Scrappy-Doo. Fuck Scrappy-Doo.
But the thing is is that sequence seems to understand what people like about Scooby-Doo, right? Like, they solve their first mystery.
Yeah.
And it's a ghost, but it turns out it's not real. They have to figure out what the actual plot is and why the guy wanted to do that in the first place, to solve the mystery. And they unmask him, find out who it is. And I kind of appreciate that they didn't, like, go into a whole thing about who that guy is.
Yeah, well, because they're like...
Excuse me.
Because they're just like, oh, it's Mr. Rigby's house. It's haunted. And they go in there and like, oh, it's Mr. Rigby. And then you can, like, kind of piece together, like, oh, he was pretending that his house was haunted so people wouldn't come in and investigate all the stuff that he'd stolen. It's like, oh, yeah, like, there's an implied motive here, but we don't have to spell it out for you.
Yeah, it's a fairly tight, like, piece of storytelling that
I
actually kind of like. And besides the fact that it has nothing to do with anything.
It doesn't have anything to do with it. It's the origin story. It's like, oh, the first mystery that they ever solved. It's like, yeah, that's kind of fun, but it doesn't do anything. We don't come back to that ever again.
Right. And it weirdly,
I was kind of expecting Mr. Rigby to come back as the, like, main villain. I think that
in a good movie that would have happened.
That would have been the payoff of that scene, but that never happened.
And it feels like it's setting you up for a different movie. It's like, here's the formula of Scooby-Doo that we all know.
Yeah,
so now we're going to move forward and deconstruct that in a really specific way. That's what it feels like. It's like making sure you're familiar with the formula so that when we do something interesting with the formula, we're all on the same page about what it was originally.
About what we're doing.
Even if you aren't already, like, familiar with Scooby-Doo, which, like, who wouldn't be, but whatever.
Fuck is it?
But instead, they just make a movie about fucking
Blue Falcon's son,
Mark Wahlberg, and, like, it's nothing. It's absolutely nothing.
Well, and it's like, it's so stupid because it's like, like Shaggy and Scooby are growing apart and they have to deal with that. It's like, okay, this is fine, but that's just like the whole fucking movie. That's the whole thing, and then we keep going back to, they do that thing that I hate with flashbacks where they show you a thing that you've already seen. It's like, yeah, we were fucking there. You showed us this, and now you're showing us it again, even though it was 10 minutes ago, and we still remember from the first time.
Right.
Of him fucking handing him the collar and being like, never take it off, Scoob. And then him taking it off, and Scooby and then Shaggy, whatever the fuck his name is, Shaggy being like, how could you, bro?
How could you take that off?
How could you take off that thing that one time? And it's like, God.
So, my other big complaint about this movie,
yes,
besides that it fucking sucks, is that, like, the animation style does not at all complement this movie or what it is or what it wants to be, right? Like, it's a fairly banal sort of... Franklin, you can't lick the microphone. Sorry, folks at home, I don't know what that sounded like.
It's our dog. He's gonna slam his head on it now. Okay, great.
Alright, so this episode is Scoob featuring Franklin. But, like, it's a fairly banal, like, it's a little bit... I'm trying to think how to describe it. It's not an especially expressive animation style.
No.
It has kind of a vibe that is, like, more unique than something like a DreamWorks movie, you know? But even still, the animation and the way things move are not especially cartoonish or expressive.
Mm-hmm.
And just the way things look, they're meant to sort of imitate reality for the most part, right? And... that doesn't... they're trying to do this, like, absurdist, goofy humor.
Yeah.
Not only in the dialogue, where they do jokes... like, there are so many jokes in this movie that are, like, funny on paper.
That, like,
but,
should have been funny, but
like,
they're just not, frankly.
The best example is, like, right at the beginning. The cop shows up because he's trying to find Scooby-Doo, and Shaggy's, like, covering for him. And he's like, oh, if it's your dog, what's his name? And he's like, Scooby? And he's like, what's his last name? Doo? And he's like, what's his middle name? And he's like, Doobie? And he's like, oh, well, if the dog has a middle name, that means he's innocent. That's the law, and I don't like it, but I gotta respect that. Which is, like...
that's funny.
It's goofy. It's, like, a funny joke. But it, like, totally falls flat in the movie because it's happening in this world that feels...
realer.
Yeah. And it's not, like, purposefully mundane. It's just boring.
Yeah. And I think it does have to do with, like, the delivery style of this movie, like, in their comedy. I think this movie overall just has, a horrible, crippling pacing problem.
Yeah.
Like, in their story, in their camera work, and in the jokes, especially. Like, there's too much time in between jokes. It's like we're waiting for a laugh track or something. Like,
right.
When that guy comes up and he's like, there's a way that you could deliver that where it would be hilarious. But he's just like, well, if the dog has a middle name, then it's cool with me. And it's like, well, that's not...
That wasn't funny.
That's not a joke. That's
right.
That's a sentence. Like...
And it's like, and it happens over and over again. Like, I didn't write it down every time, but there's so many jokes that I was like, that's funny.
Yeah.
I'm not laughing, though.
Yeah.
Like...
It's like watching modern Jerry Seinfeld.
Right.
Did you see his last comedic special?
No.
He does a lot of humor about making plans with friends.
Right.
Because it's Jerry Seinfeld.
Well, he has a lot of material about being a billionaire now, too.
Yeah, he does.
Which is one of those things that's, like, sort of a weird thing. I feel like if I were Jerry Seinfeld, like... I would feel like I need to address it, you know?
Yeah.
Like, if I just showed up, it was just like, oh, socks, what's the deal with that? They'd
I'm
be
just
like,
a regular guy like you.
They'd be like, fuck you, Jerry Seinfeld. You have 800 cars.
You could buy and sell every person in this room.
Yeah, it's like, fuck you talking about socks. When was the last time you looked at a sock, Jerry?
You're not wearing socks now. I can see your loafers.
Yeah. But then, like, if you were, but then if you're like, oh, I'm a billionaire.
I'd be like, ha ha ha.
People, and he like does some material about how he's a billionaire and sort of like being self-reflexive about it. You'd be like, okay, all right, fine. Like, I'm not happy about it, but I'll get on board with this.
But then he does a joke about like making plans with friends to go get lunch. And we're like, when the fuck do you do that, Jerry? When do you not have a personal butler bring you in
hold
food?
on. He has a whole TV show where he makes plans with friends to go get lunch, Adeline.
But for a profit. That's fake.
Yeah.
Jackson, it's all scripted. It's fake.
But he's a producer on that show.
It's all Jackson.
He has to do it.
Jackson, none of it's real.
My point is, he still has to make the plan to do it.
But that's not what he's talking about. He's not talking about, my TV show when I harass comedians.
It doesn't matter.
He's not talking about that. He's talking about in his personal life with his quote-unquote friends going out to get food. And I can guarantee that does not happen. Jerry Seinfeld and some buds aren't just going to Subway. That's not happening.
Yes, they are. Come on.
They're not.
He's Jerry. He's a regular guy.
He's a regular guy.
He wears jeans.
What's the deal? He also he sounds like Brian Regan in his new bit. It's weird. He screams a lot. Like,
right.
He doesn't have the regular like Jerry Seinfeld like cadence of his jokes.
Right. He's shaking it up.
Where it's like a low simmer of anger that like sometimes erupts. He's just like at a 10 the whole time.
Right.
This has been Adeline watched the new Jerry Seinfeld comedy special and didn't think it was that funny.
Okay. I always wonder what it is, because like Jerry Seinfeld is obscenely rich.
Oh yeah.
And like presumably off of, I guess he just had a really good contract on Seinfeld.
I mean, he must have.
Because, you don't think about like, oh, Matt LeBlanc, he's rolling in it. Like, I'm sure Matt LeBlanc is set for life, but he's not like...
I'm sure he's a rich dude.
Yeah, I don't think Matt LeBlanc is a billionaire like Jerry Seinfeld is. Like, I wonder what it is that he's done that he's amassed that kind of fortune.
Yeah. Like, how many seasons did Seinfeld even have?
Like 6 or 7, something like that.
Like, pretty good. I mean, like... Once your show like reaches a certain amount of seasons, you're basically just set for life.
Yeah.
But, like I don't know.
Once you get syndication, like those checks just roll in.
Yeah,
like...
but like even like with all the other cast members, like I don't think any of them are billionaires either. He must have just gotten an amazing deal or something.
Yeah, and I guess he did also have like 800 stand-up specials.
Yeah. But I don't know. I don't know how much dough those like rake in though.
Right. And I guess there is a certain point where it's like, oh, I'm Jerry Seinfeld. I made $6 million last month on Seinfeld. Maybe, I don't know, maybe he's just like a really smart investor. Maybe he's just like,
something.
Yeah.
Maybe I buy Apple. This has been, why does Jerry Seinfeld have so much money? Where did he get that?
Where did he get all that money? Anyway.
So Scoob.
Scoob. And like, I don't know. And
Well, I like the animation style. I think it's pretty.
It looks nice.
Look at. Yeah, it's very aesthetically pleasing, and it's like it's a fun thing to look at because it's not as what's the word I'm thinking of when everything looks the same.
I don't know.
It's not like a DreamWorks film where it's like they're all very like strict and kind of tight and like they all have the same character model. Like it's very expressive, but It's just not as expressive as a Scooby-Doo cartoon.
Right.
And at points, it really does feel like they're just trying to make a Scooby-Doo cartoon.
Right.
But then it doesn't work because it's not a Scooby-Doo cartoon.
Yeah.
It's a movie, and B, it's animated in a much different style and a much different setting. Like, it just doesn't work. You can't just make a Scooby-Doo cartoon right now. It's not how this works.
And they're constantly using the old sound effects from the TV show.
Which is just too much. It doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
Completely.
Because it doesn't feel like a cartoon. It feels like they occupy a real space in a real world, you know? Which, depending on the movie, is a pretty hard thing to do, weirdly, but they managed to pull it off in this movie
and then ruin
to its detriment.
And then ruin it with some weird sound effects that don't make any sense. Like the which is a sound that no human can make with their mouths, but we're gonna try anyway.
But then also, like, and there's that bit where they're like, oh, we're friends, we solved our first mystery, and they just, like, recreate, like, shot for shot the, like, old theme song.
Which I think could have been really fun.
Yeah.
But again, the pacing is so weird.
And, like,
that
the
it
animation,
doesn't work.
It doesn't fit the tone that they're going for.
Yeah.
And not only that, but it also, like...
I think it would have played more if they, like, literally just inserted the old animation. Like, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, maybe. Or, like, I don't know, wouldn't it be fun if they got somebody...
so much of a juxtaposition that it would have been funny, because it would have been, like, startling, and you'd be like, oh, this is weird.
Or would it have been even cool if they pulled a move where they, like, got somebody to do, like, a 2D sequence where they, like, reanimated that whole thing.
Yeah, like, that would have been fun.
But, like, also, I just think that, like... I don't know. This movie feels like it's trying to play on a certain amount of nostalgia, but it doesn't have any interest in the actual thing it's trying to make you care about, you know?
All they care about is the fucking Blue Falcon, which nobody cares about.
So, like,
Not a single person cares about the Blue Falcon.
So part of this whole pitch for Scoob is that they're trying to do a Hanna-Barbera cinematic universe. I think I brought that up.
You did.
Already.
Because we've talked about extended universes for a grip now.
But, so, like, now... It's sorry, I lost my train of thought. Like, so the way that they're doing that, they're like, okay, we're going to get Dynamite and we're going to get Dick Dastardly just as a way to, like, sort of, you know, seed the idea of, like, there's other stuff without, like, being really in your face about it. Like, not making a movie that's like Scooby-Doo meets Batman, you know?
Yeah. This movie did feel like Scooby-Doo meets Batman, though.
But... the thing about that is if you're going to do that, you have to be conscientious about the way you're deploying those characters.
Yeah.
Because Dynamite is, you know, a recognizable Hanna-Barbera character. And Dick Dastardly, especially, is iconic in his own way.
But they didn't give him his funny little hat.
But that's true. He doesn't have a funny little hat, and that's very important. But, like... you have to understand that Blue Falcon and Dynamite are not characters that the audience is going to really respond to automatically. And, like, they treat those characters in this movie like somebody that you have a vested interest in, that you're excited to see, that you care about, and they give them so much narrative weight that they don't deserve, you know?
Yeah.
Like, the movie is less about the Scooby-Doo gang than it is about Blue Falcon and Dynamite and the girl who's exasperated at them all the time.
Yeah, the black woman that we need.
And, you know, I don't think... because if it were me, I would pull an Iron Man 3, right? Mm-hmm. I would be like, oh, these guys are things, and... like, these guys are these great heroes and whatever, but then at the end it turns out that they're pawns for whatever, or they're actually the bad guys.
Or they're a person in a mask, which this movie doesn't have.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's wearing a goddamn mask.
Yeah.
And they never take it off.
And then they pull it off and it's Mr. Rigby. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
And, like...
Mr. Rigby's like, I stole all of Blue Falcon's shit, and I've been pretending to be Blue Falcon.
It's right there.
It's right there.
And, like... but yeah, like, make him the bad guy or something, because people won't be mad. It's like, what? Blue Falcon was the bad guy?
I thought that Blue Falcon was in this movie, but it's not Blue Falcon. I thought that Entei was in Pokemon 3, but it wasn't.
I waited 80 years for a Blue Falcon movie, and this is what I get? Now I'm never gonna get my Blue Falcon movie.
Do people really care that much about the Mandarin?
I mean, look, I don't want to. I don't want to be the guy who says that people who care about things are actually just pretending to care about things.
Yes.
However, I'm sure there are some people who are very into the Mandarin as a character. I bet there's probably about 8 or 9 of them, and they are valid.
The rest of you, however.
But I think there's a certain amount of, I just knew the Mandarin, and part of the reason I like these comic book movies is because I feel in on something when I recognize things. And when you turn it around and make me, and you trick me like that with something I already felt superior for knowing about, then that just makes me mad.
Yeah.
I think that, and there is also just a certain amount of people being hostile about things they don't like for reasons that are stupid.
Anyway, anything in a movie that they don't like.
We said that in Iron Man 3 also, I think.
Because Iron Man 3 is great.
Iron Man 3 fucking rules. Okay, this movie should have been more like Iron Man 3. This movie should
have just been Iron Man 3 the sequel. Anyway. Also,
Iron Man 3 2, Scoob.
What I don't understand, what's the name of the guy that's Shaggy and always plays Shaggy and will always be Shaggy?
Yeah, I don't know.
You have your computer open?
Well, why does it matter?
Because he should have fucking been Shaggy.
Right.
Who's this guy?
Will Forte.
Will Forte fucking sounds like Carl Weathers from Jimmy Neutron.
Okay, Carl Weezer.
What did I say?
Carl Weathers. Who is in Predator and Rocky.
I said what I said.
He sounds like Carl Weathers from The Mandalorian.
He sounds like Carl Weezer from Jimmy Neutron. And I don't understand why they didn't hire that guy. Because it's not, you don't get the appeal of Will Forte, because it's not Will Forte's voice.
Yeah.
It's Will Forte doing a voice of someone else, so you're not even pulling in people for Will Forte. So it's like, just let the guy who always voices Shaggy.
Kasem.
Yeah, let Casey Kasem voice Shaggy. Because he's voiced Shaggy in everything, and as soon as Shaggy doesn't sound like Casey Kasem, I'm like, whoa, that's not Shaggy. Who the fuck is that?
I don't think that's right. I don't think he's always been Shaggy.
There's a guy that's played Shaggy, like, a lot.
Oh yeah, I guess he still is. Oh, no, wait, no. Okay, he plays a different character in Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated.
Oh, that makes sense.
Just as, like, a fun whatever.
That's fun.
Okay, I guess in What's New Scooby-Doo, he was still Shaggy.
Wait, who played Shaggy in the live-action movie? Because I was also the voice actor.
Oh, that's right, because he was around, too.
Yeah, who's that?
But no, the guy who plays Shaggy is, like, the guy who plays Scooby is famously always the same guy.
Yeah.
He's like an Optimus Prime or a Winnie the Pooh. Like, he's always been.
But, like, these, like, it's because with Shaggy and Scooby, they have such specific voices that messing with them in any way, I think, was just a mistake.
Yeah. But I don't know. I feel like I agree with you, but I also think that in execution, I got used to Will Forte's voice.
That's
fair,
know? But I just was upset. I just was nitpicky about a thing I didn't like about a movie.
Right. He played Shaggy in an episode of Johnny Bravo.
Makes sense.
And in an episode of Blue's Clues. No, he didn't play Shaggy. He played somebody else in Blue's Clues. That makes sense.
No, but what was I gonna say?
He voiced Shaggy in a video game called Scooby-Doo's Yum Yum Go.
This movie also, like, suffers from a weird thing that a lot of modern movies do.
Wait, also list of vegans. Let's take a look. Wikipedia list of vegans.
You're not a vegan if you're not on Wikipedia's list of vegans.
Casey Affleck. I don't recognize a lot of these names.
Well,
Darren Aronofsky. That makes sense.
So anyway. Oh god, what was
This is a long list. Look at all these vegans.
What the fuck was I talking about before you started talking about vegans?
I know Tobey Maguire's on here somewhere.
Where's the bastard?
Greta Thunberg.
What was I gonna say? What was I talking about? Oh, I think this movie suffers from a problem that I think a lot of modern, like, movies do, where they're trying to be, like, really, like, on the hot topic and, like, really, like, relevant. So they bring up things like millennials and toxic masculinity
right.
in a way that, like, weirdly feels like it's a joke for the adults making fun of younger people.
Right.
But also weirdly feels like they're trying to be inclusive to the younger people and the things that they're talking about. And it just never pays off. Like, it's like they made Velma Hispanic, which normally I'd be like all down for, like, that's dope, make her whatever you want her to be, but it only comes up when she says excelente one time or something, like something really stupid like that. I'm like, if you're gonna make her Hispanic, either don't bring it up and just treat it like it's normal, or like do something with it other than just having her say excelente one time. Like, it's just, why did you do this? Like, I don't understand who you did this for. This isn't representation.
There's also just no coherency to the jokes in it.
Yeah.
Like, there's the one joke, another joke that's funny on paper. They are going to the bowling alley and they ask this lady, and she's like, yeah, there's this guy who says like all the time, and he kind of talks like an out-of-touch 30-year-old's version of what a teenage stoner would sound like. Franklin.
Frank, drop that. No.
But it's like this self-aware joke, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like cool if this movie felt like that. Like, it was kind of winking and like kind of ripping on the old Scooby-Doo in like a friendly kind of way, like that.
But it hasn't done that at all.
Yeah, it hasn't done that at all, and it doesn't really ever do that again. And I feel like this is going to be bad audio.
Okay, Franklin is chewing a toy on top of the microphone cord, as if to be like, I'm not chewing on the microphone cord.
But
Franklin, we're going to have to kick you off the podcast.
Franklin, do you have something to say? Right, I would get him all riled up so he barks on Mike, but then we won't be able to get him to stop.
He will never stop.
But yeah, and like all the jokes feel like they're from different
writers
in different movies, and there's not a consistent comedic tone.
They must have had like chronic issues with a script. Like, that's the only way that I could explain, like, such a weird pacing problem throughout this whole movie. And because, like, they did have, like, other ideas in production that got totally scrapped. Like, that makes me think that they had, like, 5 different scripts that they were all trying to salvage into one.
No, I think it was more like they had an idea, but then somebody got cold feet and they came in and were like, fuck all that. It has to be a superhero movie.
Yeah.
That's what people want. And also make it a prequel. And
also
make sure that such and such, and they like ruin the whole movie, like just destroy this thing. So then all the comedy writers are like, okay, well then fuck it, I don't give a shit anymore.
What if when Blue Falcon or Fred is fighting and Daphne just says the words toxic masculinity, like that's even a joke?
What if
like that's even not just a sentence?
I've got one. Blue Falcon, you thought that Tinder was an app for getting firewood. And that's in the movie.
And that's also...
We could do that one.
I think it is a fun idea what they do with Blue Falcon.
Yeah.
Where it's not actually Blue Falcon, it's his adult son that's always vlogging. Like, that's hilarious. But then in execution, it's not funny. Like, here's this old guy trying to be in touch with millennials. Like, that's funny. And it could also be like a winking kind of thing. But then they don't do that in any capacity.
Do you want to talk about Simon Cowell?
Why the fuck is Simon... goddamn Cowell in this movie? That whole scene where he's like talking to them in the diner or whatever, and then Scooby and Shaggy start singing for him. I'm like, this is a scene that they cut out of Shrek 2 because it wasn't fucking funny. Like, what are we doing? What year is it?
So, here's what I think happened. I think the original joke was that they were going to get Gordon Ramsay. Which would kind of make sense.
Which would at least make some sense.
Because he, like, comes in and, like, revamps businesses. So, like, Gordon Ramsay would come in and you would be like, all right, here's what you need to do. Do you really think you're doing the best that you could be? And they'd be like, no, chef. And he'd be like, that's right. Which, like...
what are you, idiot sandwich?
Yeah, they would steal jokes from the internet. It'd be really funny.
It would be really funny.
He would say, there's so much oil in this dish that America's gonna invade it. And we'd all laugh. Anyway, but, like, he would come in and say, like, oh, here's what you need to do. And, like, that would kind of make sense. Like, it wouldn't be that funny, but it would, like, make sense as a gag.
Yeah.
But, like, having Simon Cowell in the year 2020, like, I want to know if kids even know who Simon Cowell is anymore.
I don't, like, all I
like,
know...
I can't imagine that they do.
Like, I just wanted Shaggy... because what is kind of funny... about that joke is for the rest of the movie, everyone's like, fuck Simon Cowell. Like, that's kind of funny.
Right.
But it's not an execution because it's Scoob.
Right, because none of the jokes are funny.
Yeah, the idea is funny. The rest of the movie, they're like, man, fuck Simon Cowell. But I wanted them to, like, make a joke. It's like, this motherfucker, he hasn't been on a show for, like, 20 years, and now it's just a bloated corpse that we keep alive for no reason. Like, that would have been funny. But they didn't do that. Instead, Simon Cowell's just in the fucking movie for no reason. Like, as a character.
First of all, okay. The other thing about that is that Simon Cowell looks like a caricature of what Simon Cowell looked like 20 years ago.
It looks like they literally got the model from Shrek 2 and just, like, put it in this movie.
And, like, it's not even what Simon Cowell looks like anymore.
No.
And, like, And he looks awful. Also,
first of all,
they're like weirdly trying to recreate a real human person in this,
and he doesn't match the style in any way.
So, just for the people who haven't seen it, which hopefully is everybody, because you shouldn't.
Because you shouldn't have seen it.
They are like, oh, we need to soup up our company, which is not a plot point.
Well, they're like, we want to solve more mysteries, do bigger things, so we need more money. And when they say that, I'm like, oh, I like this. I like what we're doing. And I like the division that it's creating in the group.
Right.
And then they're like, in order to do that, we need, like, some help for someone to, like, kind of tell us what to do. And we're like,
brand
okay.
consultant.
We're like, okay, that also makes sense. And then they're like, here's fucking Simon Cowell. And I'm like, who? Why? He's American Idol. He hasn't... It's not been on the air. So you don't.
Well, he's still a judge on like Britain's Got Talent. I think.
Oh yeah, on America's Got Talent. But like, why did it have to be Simon Cowell? Why couldn't it be any other person? Bring on the fucking Property Brothers. Like, I don't care.
That would be so good.
Why is it Simon Cowell?
You could have the exact same dialogue and make it the Property Brothers. It'd be 10 times funnier.
If they were like, man, fuck the Property Brothers. That would be hilarious.
What are the Property Brothers now?
God, like, because that would at least make some kind of sense.
I feel like
they like run a thing, they like run a business together. Yeah. So for them to like come in with advice, that would make more sense than Simon Cowell. Why is Simon Cowell here?
You remember in my 5th grade when the drama club did Truman's Got Talent, Truman Elementary?
I do remember that.
And they had kids pretend to be Randy Jackson and and Simon Cowell and Paula Abdul.
Yeah,
for a weird variety show that came up with.
Here's what my thing was, is that we were the orphans from Annie.
Oh, that's right.
And we would come up and we would sing terribly, and then Simon Cowell would call us a bunch of ingrates or something.
Right.
And then we would sing It's a Hard Knock Life, and then we would leave the stage. That's what it was.
I remember, because I was 5th grade, and I did drama club in 3rd and 4th grade. And I always got good roles because my mom was in the PTA.
Yes.
And I decided, I don't think I even necessarily decided I didn't want to do it the last year. I think I just kind of forgot about it and didn't realize it was like, I was like 5 and I was just like thinking about other stuff.
Yeah.
You know? I just like forgot
Spider-Man
about it.
Or something.
Yeah. But then Mrs. was like, Jackson! I don't know if I should say Mrs.'s name on the podcast. I don't know if that matters. Maybe I'll bleep it out. Okay. Whatever. But like, she was like, Jackson, you have to. We have to get you in here. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, sure, I guess.
Remember when you did
then
that?
We sang Puttin' on the Ritz by Taco. And I did a tap dance. By which I mean, we choreographed a little dance. And then there's that tap break in the song Puttin' on the Ritz by Taco. And I was like wearing a suit and I had a cane with a diamond on top of it.
Yeah, and you had like a top hat.
And then they were just like, okay, Jackson and all his, I was like the front guy, I guess.
Yeah.
And they were just like, and then all you guys just tap dance. We were like, okay.
That thing that every 10-year-old did after watching Happy Feet.
Right, yeah. And so we just kind of pretended to tap dance and we thought it was really cool.
Really good.
And then I don't remember what.
Remember in that Lewis and Clark play?
Did they have Randy Jackson? Was there a kid who was Randy Jackson?
I don't remember.
Was there a white kid who was Randy Jackson? That's what I'm trying to remember.
I truly do not remember. Probably.
We should talk to Mom and get Mrs. phone number and ask her if there was a white kid who played Randy Jackson.
There's all these people coming out.
Franklin's attacking the mirror.
This was a mistake.
Okay.
Square up, Mirror Franklin.
What were you saying?
I don't remember anymore. So Scoob.
And I don't want to talk about Scoob anymore. It sucks. Tracy Morgan is Captain Caveman at one point. And it's like, that's just like another Hanna-Barbera character that's like kind of people know about.
I've never heard of that character ever before.
He's like one of those like B-list Hanna-Barbera.
Like when he showed up, I was like, oh, a funny caveman character. But the whole reason that he's even there just makes no fucking sense.
Yeah.
They're like, we're on this island, like the skull is underneath a mountain. Or like, okay, we're underneath a mountain. And they're like, oh, there's a whole ecosystem here. And it's like, okay, that's fine. Also, there's dinosaurs. I'm like, fucking why?
And here's my thing. If you're doing a Hanna-Barbera universe, This is the absolute perfect setup for the Flintstones.
Yeah.
Which you botched so completely by having it be such that the Flintstones could not possibly exist in this.
If Freddie Flintstone showed up,
he's
and when
usually
we
just called
got
Fred
to that little
Flintstone,
zone,
but that's okay.
I don't know these characters well in any capacity. But if we got to that stupid dinosaur island, and Fred Flintstone was like, and it's John Goodman,
Of course,
and he's
yes.
like, hey, you gotta, this is Fred the Bear, which was, anyway.
Why, you said hey like Fat Albert, so I'm confused.
No, it's the bear. He says,
Yogi Bear.
Pick a basket.
Yogi Bear.
And he's like, you gotta fight me in order to get this stupid whatever. Then I'd be like, oh hell yeah.
So okay.
But instead they chose Captain Caveman. I don't know who the fuck that is.
And they made Captain Caveman, and they made all the cavemen in this world like this really specific kind of like round hairy caveman.
This race of cavemen.
Yeah, and first of all, it's kind of weird that famous black actor Tracy Morgan is playing
a white man.
Well, no, not that. Just he's playing a caveman, but whatever.
Also,
but
there's layers here, and I don't know how to deal with any of them.
Anyway, I don't know. And it is also weirdly like because his whole persona on 30 Rock is like this black guy who like embodies the worst stereotypes of black men, but that's like the joke of it, you know?
Yeah.
So that's like kind of his persona that he carries over into the last OG kind of like, that's kind of his vibe. And it's, sort of nuanced and it kind of makes sense. But then when you put that persona and that
away
vibe
all of that,
and you like put it in, he's going to play a caveman in this one. It's like, we can think about this one some more, maybe.
Just think about it a little bit.
So what are your hopes for the Hanna-Barbera cinematic universe that's definitely still happening?
I want Johnny Quest and I want the Bird Lawyer, and that's all I want.
Harvey Birdman.
I want a Harvey Birdman.
That would be fun. I mean, look.
I want like a Phoenix Wright movie, except it's Harvey Birdman. That's all I want.
What would be ideal for me would be if you were to, first of all, I want like not like an adult movie, but like a Brad Bird-esque, like mature, thoughtful Johnny Quest movie. That would be super cool.
Yeah.
That like took it seriously and like had something to say. I don't know.
Yeah.
But also, wouldn't it be great if you like built this universe where like characters interacted with each other, but then you introduced Harvey Birdman, not like the original Harvey Birdman where he was just a superhero people didn't really care about, but the like attorney at law Harvey Birdman, and he was just a real guy in live action who was just hanging out in the in the animated world and like interacting with people
and putting people on trial for stupid things.
Yeah, that would be great. I would be really into that.
That would be great.
We seem overdue for a Harvey Birdman movie, right?
We need some kind of reboot. That feels like such a modern like kind of joke. I don't understand why there hasn't been a new TV show for him or something.
That was like the first wave of like Adult Swim content was Harvey Birdman, attorney at law.
Yeah.
And it was produced by Hanna-Barbera, or at least whatever Hanna-Barbera looked like in, 1999 or whatever it was. Yeah. And like that was just as a comedic idea was so ahead of its time.
Oh yeah.
And I feel like people didn't really appreciate it at the time, but like looking back at it is so funny. And like we need more Harvey Birdman in the world. Like for those who don't know, Harvey Birdman was this TV show where it's like this Hanna-Barbera superhero who's a lawyer who just like does this like weird court drama of like characters from the Hanna-Barbera canon. So it's like Yogi Bear is on trial for, I don't know, like pedophilia or something
like that.
And like he has to defend Yogi Bear and they're always like these like sort of like edgy like and I don't know, it sometimes works better than others. Like there's one where it's the dad from the Jetsons, but he's just like a guy who's like super high and like that's the joke and you're like okay, that's whatever.
There's the really funny one with Johnny Quest where they're like fighting for custody of the two kids. Like that one's hilarious.
That's a good one. It's just a good show. There's a Droopy Dog one that was really funny too, and I can't remember what it was.
Well, it's like I don't know, that just I don't know, like something like that kind of meta humor that's kind of like BoJack Horseman a little bit, like that like feels like such like it feels like the right time for that kind of show. Well, it was like
self-aware meta humor before it was like the norm,
a thing that we would do every second of every day.
Right, that came along like if I'm remembering this correctly, it was like 98 or 99 which was before, and, I'll still say this, I think Shrek is, like, the dawn of that.
Yeah.
And it was, like, before Shrek, like, by a few years. It was, like, sort of laying the groundwork for what Shrek was going to do a few years later, Mm-hmm. Which in turn laid the groundwork for what Deadpool was going to do years later. But you don't think that's fair to say. Whatever. But yeah, like, this movie, they're not solving a mystery. It doesn't care at all about Scooby-Doo. It's just like, oh, Dick Dastardly is trying to take over the world and open a door to Hades. And it's like the real underworld, and he has to, like, find 3 big skulls that are not MacGuffins.
They're not.
But they are objects that he's trying to get that serve... You know what? They are kind of MacGuffins.
They are. They could be anything.
It could be anything, and the plot would still... I mean, I don't know.
Well, because we're doing that whole thing with Cerberus, so it kind of makes sense. But, like, it doesn't have to be Cerberus.
Right, yeah.
Cerberus is a MacGuffin.
The plot at its core, it would be the same, regardless of what actually happens.
Well, what's so stupid is that sometimes we do that in Scooby-Doo, where it's like, oh, there's, like, actually something supernatural going on. Like, there's, like, the Mummy movie. Like, there's things that we're doing sometimes where, like, there's actual supernatural things going on. But it's, at the end of the day, it's still a human person controlling those supernatural things. It's like, oh, this is the bad guy, and he's taking control of these supernatural things in order to do something. So you still get that unmasking. Like, it's never just, there's a ghost. It's like, oh, there is an ancient curse tied to this artifact, and this person is using that in order to do something. So it's like, there's still that human villain element.
I think even that is still dumb.
I think, well, it's dumb, but it's a thing that Scooby-Doo has done before, so I wouldn't be upset if they did it. But they just don't do that fucking at all. You have Dick Dastardly, who's trying to get the soul of his dog back, which is fucking, who fucking cares?
Well, okay, first of all, Muttley is the entire reason that Dick Dastardly is funny.
Yeah.
And to take him away, except for one tiny moment at the end, is whack. Because the thing about Muttley is that he's the straight man.
Yeah.
And Dick Dastardly does something stupid, and then Muttley goes... And that's the punchline.
That's all that it is. And you took that away from us.
You took away the punchline. Anyway.
It's like, he's doing that. That doesn't make any fucking sense. Okay, we have to collect. What makes me laugh about this is that Scooby-Doo does do that sometimes, where they'll, like, take something from a mythology and they'll be like, oh, this is what they're going after, and then they'll, like, turn it into something else. But, like, they didn't even, like, fucking Google what Cerberus was.
Right.
They were just like, oh, there's a big 3-headed dog, and, hell, and treasure, and, Alexander the Great. And that's the whole thing, so we're gonna do that. It's like, okay, so what does this have to do with Dick Dastardly? Nothing? Cool.
And so, okay, so here's the plot. Dick Dastardly wants to go to the underworld to get the treasure that's there.
Because there's money there, don't worry about it.
And also, don't worry about the fact that it's, like, actually the underworld. Like, he's for real going into the afterlife to get some treasure from Hades.
Don't ask questions.
And so in order to do that, he has to get 3 big dog skulls, because Alexander the Great had a dog. And once he does that, then...
Yeah, where the fuck did those skulls come from? Are those Cerberus' actual skulls? Did he kill Cerberus?
I don't know.
What's going on?
They're the 3 skulls of Cerberus, and then once he has them, it turns out that actually Scooby-Doo is a descendant of Alexander the Great's dog, so he's the key to opening the door, so Dick Dastardly has to get at Scooby-Doo. And then... I don't know why Alexander the Great is connected to it at all, besides that he's also Greek, but whatever.
Don't worry about it.
And then that happens, and Cerberus gets loose. Anyway.
Yeah. But before we do all of that, we do a lot of shit that doesn't end up mattering.
Yeah. And, like... But even if the mystery gang saw all this and they were like, no way, there has to be a rational explanation. They're like trying to figure it out, and then they're proven wrong and it is just fucking Hades.
Yeah.
That is something.
That is something.
That is a take that makes some kind of sense, rather than just not acknowledging it at all.
Just having everybody move on.
Especially since we've established in the film that that's their whole thing, is like solving the mystery and figuring out what the real explanation is.
You showed us what they actually do. And then at the end of the movie, they also start a business where that's actually what they do.
Right.
So what the fuck are we doing here? What is this? The only good part of this film is the little robots.
Right.
They're amazing and I love them and they're adorable. The little one with the vacuum cleaner for a head that's in love with Daphne. I fucking love that shit. That's so good. I love it.
Dick Dastardly
He's in charge of the store afterwards. It's adorable and I love it. Dick
Dastardly has a layer that looks really nice and he's got a bunch of little robot minions that are cute sometimes.
Yeah.
That's what Adeline is so excited about.
They're adorable, and I love them. One of them's got a vacuum cleaner, and a really disturbing scene.
Right,
where he rips the head off of one of them and replaces it with a vacuum.
So
but afterward, it's cute.
There was something else I wanted to say. Whenever they're on the Falcon Fury, for some reason, the camera, like, becomes weirdly unstable.
Becomes like it's someone filming a documentary.
Yeah, it feels like The Office all of a sudden, where, like, the camera is, like, moving around, and I don't think it ever pulls focus, but it's constantly, like, zooming in and zooming out and, like, following people in a weird way that it doesn't do any other time.
Yeah.
That I don't know why.
Because it doesn't really have any kind of effect. Maybe they thought it would, like, enhance the comedy or something.
Right.
And it's like, I think they weirdly want to set up this cool, like, dynamic relationship going on with the Blue Falcon and all of his friends, but, like, they never do enough to, like, actually do it.
Yeah.
It's like, because you have Dino Dog, who's like, oh, this isn't Dino, what is his name?
Dynamite.
Dynamite.
Like Dynamite.
Like, whatever.
It was 1960-something. That was
cool.
Look
like I was born in the 60s? But so
his name's Dinobut, and he's voiced by Ken Jeong.
Dinobut?
He's voiced by Ken Jeong because Bill Hader said no.
All right. Well, Dinobut is like, oh, I've been partners with Blue Falcon for forever, but he just retired and left me with his stupid son, and I'm trying to teach the stupid son how to do this, but all he wants to do is vlog, and he's 40, and he shouldn't be doing that.
Right.
Like, that's funny, but we never really do that. We never really have that conversation. And then just, like, God, they're, like, I really want to like the, like, pilot lady, but she really just feels like we needed a black woman, and we wanted to have a funny dynamic where she's, like, exasperated and does all the work, and Blue Falcon is, like, dumb. And it's like, that just, it just doesn't work. And I want to like her, but I know that's the only reason that she exists, and it's stupid.
I also think that just, like, I don't know, the whole, like, actual, like, emotional core of this movie is that Scooby finds out that he's special, so Blue Falcon and Dynamite are like, oh, Scoob, you gotta hang with us, we're cool, and you're part of us now. And Shaggy's like, what? I'm not special, and I don't feel special, so we can't be friends anymore.
You have to choose.
You have to choose between him or me, and then he does, and he goes off, and they're mad, and then they make up.
Yeah. And then Shaggy dies, and then he immediately comes back.
I forgot about that.
What they want me, two things that they do. They want me to think that Dynamite is in danger, and they want me to cry about that. And I'm not going to, because I don't give a fuck about Dynamite. And then the second thing that they do is that they expect me to cry when Shaggy dies, and I'm also not going to do that, because I know that Shaggy isn't going to die.
Right.
Because the movie is Scoob. And it's like, there are ways that you could have done that would have made me cry. Like, if you wanted to kill Shaggy, if you wanted to have a gotcha moment where you killed Shaggy and made me cry, and then I was pissed at you later, like, you could have at least done that effectively. And because you could have had any emotional beat where we, like, actually see him die, and then I would have been sad.
Right.
But what they do is they just pull one of those stupid switcheroos, where they're like, I'll sacrifice myself for you. I'll shoot myself into space on the pod. I'll shoot myself into space on the pod, or whatever. Like, they do that. So he's just, like, gone. He's not dead. He's just not there anymore.
Right.
And then, literally, as they're, like, consoling Scooby, Velma's like, but wait, what if we read this thing? And then he comes back. And I'm like, I fucking knew it. You didn't make me cry, and you just wasted 10 more seconds of my life.
Right.
Like, there's no payoff, there's no setup, it's not worth it. Why did you do this?
But I do want to be conscientious of that argument, because emotional and dramatic stakes don't always need to be tied to somebody actually being dead.
But there were none.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, the example I always bring up is Black Panther.
Yes.
Where T'Challa gets thrown off the waterfall and he's presumed dead, right?
Yes.
The stakes attached to that aren't that you actually think he's dead. You're devastated for the implications of that moment, and
that someone else is in charge of Wakanda.
Well, right, but not only that, but also the emotional effect that believing that he's dead would have on the other characters in the movie, right?
Yeah.
That's where the stakes are attached. Obviously, the movie's called Black Panther, and you know he's not going to die.
Yes.
Like 40 minutes into the movie.
Yeah.
But that doesn't make it invalid as an emotional beat. So
Yeah.
I don't want to say that the complaint is that they try to convince us he's dead when we know he's not dead, because that is not always
that's not what I mean.
An important thing.
But there are very ineffective ways to
Exactly.
do that also.
Yes.
So it's like when they try to tell me that Superman is dead, and then 10 seconds later they tell me that he's not dead.
No, you're wrong, because that's good.
It's not good.
It is good.
It's not.
Because then in Justice League, which is good.
Yeah, what a good film.
It's all about people dealing with the consequences.
You like the evil Superman with amnesia?
When Superman,
Did you like him?
Yeah, he had amnesia.
And he punched Lois Lane or whatever. I don't remember what happens in that
No,
movie.
he gets in a fight with the Flash.
That's right.
And then the Flash and
then
Cyborg have to
aliens
dig up.
happen?
No, remember when Flash and Cyborg have to dig up Superman's grave?
Yeah, I do.
And they're
remember
in
that.
a graveyard with shovels in the middle of the night.
Yeah, I do remember that.
That part rules.
The only good parts of Justice League are that part and the part where the thing explodes and Superman's like, "Oh, I wish I was dead." That's really funny. Everything else is bad.
I'm still, I don't know how I feel about the whole Snyder Cut thing anymore. I want to see it so bad, though.
I just want to. It's not I think it would be better. It's just I want to see it.
Yeah.
What did you do?
Well, no, it would be better. Don't pretend like it wouldn't be better.
But Batman versus Superman
is better than Justice League, Adeline.
I mean, that's fair. That's really fair. I'm just saying, if nothing's gonna make it a good film, it's gonna be better.
Right.
But it's never gonna be a good film. That's not how this works.
You just don't appreciate.
It's real cinema.
You don't appreciate Zack Snyder like I do.
I don't. I'll stand by that. I don't.
Also, there's this bit where, they're trying to go save somebody or whatever, and the mystery machine gets pulled over, and it's a hot police officer. And Fred is
Which feels like a joke from 1992.
But then they literally play 35 seconds of Barry White's Let's Get It On, which is the laziest, most non-joke ever. And it is happens for so long. And it's just nothing. It's the least funny thing ever in history.
Well, and this movie seems so out of... You already said this. I'm stealing
Right.
the thing that you said. But, it feels out of date for, 3 different time periods.
Right.
They do that thing where Blue Falcon shows up, and then they play All I Do Is Win, 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 no matter what.
Right.
And I'm is it 2010? What are we doing? And then you have Simon Cowell, so it feels like it's the year 2000. And then you have that joke, and I don't even know what time period that's from.
Right.
It's just not funny.
But
I don't know what you're doing.
There's also, part of the whole bit of Blue Falcon is that he's always very online. So he's always say hashtag whatever, which is, very much a joke that we all stopped laughing at, about 10 years
after
ago.
the Emoji Movie, I think.
Yeah.
After the Emoji Movie ruined it.
When was it that, was it Jimmy Fallon and Justin Timberlake who did that joke where it was the guy who says hashtag too much, and he was always hashtag breakfast, hashtag TV show, hashtag Game of Thrones, hashtag, and he did the little hand slappy
that
thing.
Was funny. And
that was
after
the last time. That was the last time it was
after
funny.
That, it wasn't funny anymore. But it's they did so many of those things that just seem so out of date and out of touch. At the end, when they're where's the DJ that you hired? I deadass thought it was either gonna be fucking Skrillex or Dead Mouse.
Yeah.
or what are the 2 robot men?
Oh, Daft Punk?
No,
Daft Punk are timeless.
Okay, but...
They won Best Album 4 years ago.
But that was 4 years ago, though.
Yeah, fair enough. I guess it was more than 4 years ago. I guess I was in high school.
Yeah.
An album rips though, so don't
It is
don't
a good
you
album.
even.
I'm just saying, if Daft Punk came down from the sky at the end of Scoob, I would have been confused, and you would have also been confused.
No, that would have been good. Tron
okay, what
Legacy.
if it was Skrillex and Deadmau5?
See, that would be different. That would be perfect.
And they were making out on top of a boombox. Would that do it for you?
I also just like that they just call... I think it's funny that they call Blue Falcon just Brian.
That's fun.
Like,
I like that.
he's I'm the Blue Falcon. He's what? It's well, I'm his son. My name's Brian. They're oh.
Hi,
so,
Brian.
Brian.
Yeah.
They, just refer to him as Brian. That's funny.
That's funny. That was a good joke. That's, the only joke that lands in this whole movie.
But anyway, there's, a gladiatorial sequence where they fight Captain Caveman, voiced by Tracy Morgan.
It's not funny.
And it's not funny, and they could have put the Flintstones in there, but they didn't. They seemingly actively tried to set it up so that the Flintstones are impossible.
Yeah.
What's your take for a Flintstones movie, Adeline?
You remember the last episode of Dinosaurs where the world ends and they all die? I want that.
You know what would be fun? I would have it.
Okay, wait, real quick. Have you ever seen the last episode of Dinosaurs?
Yes.
It's the freakiest thing on the planet.
It's really upsetting.
Where they all just accept the fact that they're going to die, and there's like news reports, and it's like actively there's like civilization breaking down,
right.
And the baby's like, "Daddy, are we gonna die?" And he's like, "It's just a new beginning, sweetheart," and then they all fucking die.
It's a good show. Jim Henson was a genius. There's an account I follow on Twitter. I think I actually stopped following because he got annoying.
Probably.
But called Muppet History, where it's just this guy who's like really passionate about like Muppets and Jim Henson and all that, and he's constantly like posting like deep cut Muppet stuff and like obscure production photos and stuff. I was like, this is fun, but then he's just like every once in a while he just goes like so far where he's just like, I think the Muppets are the purest, most beautiful thing in this world, and they are the reason I'm still alive today. And you're like,
there are so many people like that.
Okay.
The frog's my savior.
But then there was one point where he was like watching Dinosaurs, and he was like live tweeting his experience, like rewatching Dinosaurs.
Yeah.
And he was constantly just like, "Yes, Queen," about like the mom in Dinosaurs. And I was like,
that's how I feel whenever people are like, "Yes, Queen," about Miss Piggy. Like, I get there is like an element of kind of like reclaiming her or whatever.
Right.
Like, there is that. At the same time, she's a terrible caricature of what women are. She's literally a pig.
It's
so I'm
pretty
like,
rough.
I don't feel like, because there is like that kind of like reclaiming of her like actually kind of becoming a female character that happened with Miss Piggy. I don't think that happens with the mom and Dinosaurs. I think she might just be a caricature of a mother. But
it was just like every time they would do an episode that was like kind of had to do with some kind of topical issue, like a story about because it was like a sitcom in the 90s, so they had to do an episode about racism, or they have to like explain to their kids what racism is or what sexual harassment is, or something. But
they're all dinosaurs, so it gets lost just a little bit.
But every time there would be one of those, be like, can you believe what they were doing? This is so far ahead of its time. They talked about sexual harassment in the 90s.
It's like, did you watch Fresh Prince?
Like, did you watch Roxanne? Like,
unfortunately, yes.
And it's just like I that's about around the time I stopped following. I
was
like,
okay, dude.
This guy is like so into the Muppets, it's like making me uncomfortable. Like,
you are too into the Muppets.
Yeah. Like, I liked when you were just like, oh, check this out. Here's like some old production stills. Here's an interview with Jim Henson where he said something funny. I was like, hell yeah, I'm into this. And then it just like went too far.
I love Jim Henson's like OG like coffee commercials
They're
with
so
those
insane.
terrifying puppets that are always like murdering each other. And he's like, here's my camera for capturing pictures of people who don't like stalemate coffee, and he like shoots
pulls
them,
out a gun,
and then he shoots them and then points at the camera and goes, "Who's next?" Like, it's so funny.
It's so good. I'm gonna post those on the Twitter because they're so funny.
Good. Oh my god, there was like a weird span of time. I watched some documentary. I don't remember what they were talking about, but they were talking about the history of like stop motion and claymation, and they were like, there's a weird span of time where like claymation was like all over commercials. For some reason, commercials were just like hopping on the claymation train, and I think there was definitely also time when they were also jumping on the puppetry train,
right?
Because you got like that puppet for one commercial, and the other one where it's like the like planet, but he's wearing glasses. You know that commercial?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, well that isn't the commercial that exists. There are puppets in commercials. That's all I'm saying.
Have you ever wondered how Monsters Inc. and Wreck-It Ralph are kind of the same?
Makes you think. What is the deal?
Have you ever thought about how the beginning of Up is sad and the beginning of Finding Nemo is also sad?
Also sad at the same time. Do you ever think about how like Megamind and Despicable Me came out around the same time? Do you ever think about that?
Yeah, or like Atlantis and Phantom Menace.
Yeah.
Do we have anything else to say? I'm so burnt out on this whole thing. I was gonna say, here's what my take for a Flintstones movie would be.
Yes.
You would have, it would be like the Flintstones are like are like an allegory for like conservatives, right?
Yeah.
They're like good people, like deep down, but they like don't understand, and they only see life their own way because they're like old timey, and they're like, this is great, but also
wait, are you saying
it's the Stone Age?
Wait, are you saying that like they are the only Stone Age people and everyone else is just like modern
No,
day people.
no, that's not what I'm saying.
Oh, okay. I would have liked that. I was about to be on board with that.
No.
That everyone else has progressed through humanity, but they're so stuck in their old ways that they're just still cavemen.
Oh, so you're just saying it would be like a fish out of water comedy where the Flintstones are just super racist all the time?
Yeah, that's what I want.
I was saying that they could, like, interact with, like... It could be like they interact with people in the present day who are like, yo, we cured, like, dysentery and shit. Yeah. And they'll be like, what? And it'll be like, oh, actually, this is better, and we're just being stubborn. And it would be, like, kind of a metaphor
so,
for
like,
about, like,
from the
conservatism. Yeah, maybe that would be it.
Is this a time travel story?
Maybe it would be a Jetsons Flintstones thing. But then it would turn into Jetsons good, Flintstones bad, which is weird.
Well, you could do what people sometimes do where it's like Neanderthals versus Homo sapiens, or like the God, Jesus. Neanderthals go extinct, but they're like also better. And they're the cool, progressive ones, and the Flintstones are the racists. Anyway, we do this, it's just gonna be Flintstones bad.
Yeah. Anyway, that was just the top of my head take. What's your take for, what's a good Hanna-Barbera? What's your good take for the one where there's a shark who plays the drums?
What's Betty and the Jets, where they're all cats? Is that Hanna-Barbera?
Josie and the Pussycats.
Josie and the Pussycats.
And that's a weird one because it got, like, absorbed into Archie Comics.
That's fair. Oh, God, there's gonna be a freaking CW show about them, isn't there?
They're in Riverdale already.
Oh, fuck, God.
Have you watched Riverdale with me?
We watched 2 episodes together.
Yeah, and they were in it.
They were?
Yes. Don't you remember when they're rehearsing in the gym and Archie comes in, he's like, hey, I'm trying to get better at guitar. Do you guys mind if I play with you? And they were like, Archie, we're serious musicians, and you need to get out of here. And that was like it.
I don't remember that.
And I'm sure they come back later, but they were just like.
And they kill a police officer or something.
And they're like,
because it's Riverdale.
They're all black and like really bitchy. Yeah. And you're like, okay, fine.
Oh, wow. Man, maybe Riverdale's really bad.
Yeah. No, Riverdale's good.
Hot take. Riverdale. Good.
No, genuinely, I don't know. I haven't watched more than a few episodes.
I feel like you should before you say anything.
No,
right
I admire Riverdale. I think it's like so. It's like so out there and so just absolutely itself that I'm just like, it's ridiculous and insane, but that's what people like about it.
Yeah, I
don't
mean,
know.
Every time I watch an episode of it, I just want to die, but I keep watching episodes.
But
so
that's
I guess
part of it. That's
you just
part of
want
it.
to fucking die every time you
just
look
have to
at the screen.
Give yourself over to the experience.
And you see Jughead, and he's like, I'm weird. I wear this hat all the time.
Yeah, it's great.
It's fucking weird. I'm like, God, okay.
I'm a weirdo. I don't want to be normal.
I would wear this hat. Look at my hat.
Remember,
Anyway, my sister died, or whatever happens in Riverdale.
And Archie's sleeping with his teacher, and it's good stuff.
Anyway, I'm just gonna plug the Mark Waid Archie comic books again.
That's fine.
Because they're really good, and I think everybody should read them. They don't get a lot of attention, but they're just like genuinely like really, really good comic books. Anyway.
But anyway, yeah.
So this is another one of those ones where there's not really a
review of it because it came out today.
Yeah, it came out today, so I don't know if I can do that. Oh fuck. I wanted to do this at the beginning.
Cool.
I'll splice this in later.
Oh, okay.
At the beginning as a thing, but I'll keep this in also just to reiterate.
All right, cool.
I want to start doing. Here's my thought. We haven't made any plans for next week.
We
don't have any guests lined up. Let's do Sonic the Hedgehog next week.
Okay.
We're gonna do Sonic the Hedgehog next week. If you write in something, just like a couple of sentences, write in what you think about Sonic the Hedgehog for our next episode, and either tweet it to us on Twitter or send it to us on our email, nonerdspod@gmail.com. And maybe if this goes well and we have enough of a listenership, we can start to transition from doing rando reviews to just like find something funny that one of our listeners said.
Yeah.
That we can read at the end.
So be funny.
Which is say something that you think is interesting and worth saying. Also, I want you guys to start leaving reviews on iTunes, because if you do that, we'll read them on the air.
Of this show?
Yeah.
Of our show?
Yes. This is a classic podcast marketing strategy.
Yes.
Which is you guys write reviews on iTunes of us on our show, and then we'll shout them out. We'll read them on the air. So if you want something read on air, just phrase it in the
Yeah.
form of a review on
Yeah.
iTunes. Anyway.
I really like No Nerds Pod. What I really like it is the fact that Jackson always does 12 jumping jacks every single episode, and then we'll have to do it.
Okay.
That wasn't funny. You can cut that. That's an example of what you shouldn't do because it wasn't funny.
Okay. Anyway. This has been... I don't know. How do you want to end
What's your
it?
funny review?
How do you want to end it?
Overall thoughts of Scoob.
It's maybe the angriest I've been in a movie.
In a long time.
In a really long time. Maybe since Predator.
That should be the tagline. As angry as I've been at a movie since Predator. It's the Dark Souls of being angry at a movie.
It's like on the DVD cover, it says, the worst movie since Predator.
Anyway, more like Scooby Don't, am I
Yeah,
right?
anyway, more like Scooby Don't. This has been No Nerds Allowed.
Scooby Don't.
And this,
There are no nerds allowed.
say the thing. This has been No Nerds Allowed.
And there are no nerds allowed.
Theme song. Get the fuck
And
out
then
of
we
here.
like ramble for a little bit.
Go write a review, you fucker.
Where we keep like kind of making jokes for like a minute